Right, and we are live, and this is in our crane. This is somewhat impromptu live stream from outside Southwark Crown Court at 12 noon on the afternoon of Friday 2nd of August 2019. And as you can see, I'm here with John Smith and David Noakes. Now, we weren't expecting to be out here in front of the court quite so early. I'm pleased to say there's a massive turnout. There was probably, 70 plus people at the court this morning. Unfortunately, only 11 were allowed in the court. But David, explain why we were here today.
Well, GcMAF is the body's way of curing cancer. It was discovered in 1980, and the government, the MHRA and their predecessors, have killed 2 million people over 25 years by concealing GcMAF from the public. If put in the NHS now, GcMAF would save the lives of 120,000 people a year. And it is this Southwark Court and the MHRA that are preventing these people from having their lives saved. And we went to court today because they wanted to confiscate my remaining assets, but they cancelled the case. We didn't know, but they cancelled the case, cancelled the listing, and we came to court and there was nothing for us. And it's been months.
So, I mean, let's just bring those people who perhaps are new to this up to speed. So we have a situation at the moment where your partner, the biochemist, Lynn Tyre, she is currently in Bronzefield Prison, awaiting extraordinary rendition to France. And of course, the French are also going to pursue you at some juncture.
Correct.
But she's due to be extradited to France next week. This case was due to be heard today. The documentation that you had served the court, advising the court that you were no longer represented by any legal team, was deposited here, signed for. So there was really no excuse for the court to say that they weren't aware that you were representing yourself. So they had a pretty good idea that you would probably turn up today, but they knew full well that the Crown Prosecution Service and the MHRA wouldn't be here.
Yes. So I sent my lawyers an email telling them that they were dismissed about 2 weeks ago. And I then, at the same time, sent another email to Southwark Crown Court and the Crown Prosecution Service, and then the other email I could remember, telling them that I was representing myself and that I had dismissed my legal team. So in order to cancel this case, they needed to contact me. They didn't contact me. And so we all turned up expecting to get a case, and there was no case. So we insisted there should be a case. I got a bit too angry, so John Smith had to take over, and he placated them, and he got a hearing for 11 o'clock in Court 10.
So John, basically what's interesting that you had submitted documentation to challenge the legitimacy of the court, and one thing that did come out of today is I very plainly heard Judge Nicholas Lorraine Smith say that he would hear that challenge next Thursday.
Yes, correct. What we did, as David explained earlier on, if we go back to the basic principles, David dismissed his legal team just over 2 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago. That was done according to procedure and they were notified. The court were also notified, so it's in as a court record. David then presented a challenge document to the court. This has been presented, it's been signed, received, and it's part of the record. However, today they conveniently say they don't know about it. It says, however, the challenge has went in. Now, what they've done, I believe, as you're entitled to your own opinion, but despite being dismissed, the legal team have been speaking to the courts, and between them, they decided to throw out the hearing today. The reason they threw that out is because today they were presented with a challenge. Now, because their authority has been challenged, they cannot proceed with any action until this is addressed. They need to establish authority, but they cannot do that. So they tried to dismiss the hearing, but they didn't notify David. So therefore, I believe this is that the legal team are actually abusing the process, they're committing crimes, they have no locus to represent them, and whether it's wittingly or unwittingly, they're actually involving the courts in it. So they're actually trying to get the courts on board, and they may be enticing them into committing a crime. Now, not only that, when we presented the paperwork, we stated that we are here today for a hearing. We hadn't been notified. They were aware of David's situation and the fact that we had a lawful power of attorney. Now, the power of attorney is a document, it's a legal document, a lawful document, which has obviously been presented through the common law court, it's recorded, and it is lawful. Now, the judge had not wanted to accept the lawful power of attorney. He didn't want anyone to represent them, and he stated that David would have to sit in front of the judge himself, which we said no, because in doing so he'd be deprived of access to justice, which is disgusting. He's clearly shown a bias towards the other side. He says, and again, the fact that they're doing what they're doing, they have erred in law. Now, the point being is, when we actually refused to go in, David then had to sit in the public gallery with myself, and the judge would only speak to him. Despite the fact I tried to speak, the judge wouldn't accept it. But the point is, the judge cannot make a ruling until he establishes jurisdiction and authority. Now, he hasn't done that. So, apart from the fact that the opposition didn't turn up, there should have been no case to answer, and it should have been thrown out. So that's the end of the story. However, they didn't. They've tried to kick it down the line instead of dealing with it just now, and they're just stalling for time. But what they don't want to do is deal with the challenge to the authority and jurisdiction. Now, that being the case, what we managed to get out of them is he says that there will be a hearing next week. It will be an all-day hearing. We will get to deal with the challenge and we'll sort it. Now, the judge himself said, well, what are you actually challenging my authority? And it was pointed out that we're challenging the authority of the court and the Crown. So therefore, as people, we have the right to do that, and they cannot proceed him against them until they establish that authority. To do so is unlawful, it's criminal, and this is something else which is on the back of Lynn Thyre's situation, because at this moment in time, we submitted a writ of habeas corpus on Lynn's behalf on Saturday. Now, we've already established that they have said they're using general procedures. This is to deal with this. Now, to do so, they're actually refusing to accept a lawful writ of habeas corpus. They're refusing to accept it because they're saying it's not on the appropriate paperwork and because don't have a legal team. Now, their rules, which we've confirmed, stipulate you do not have to have a legal team, you do not have to submit the form on their paperwork, and everyone has a right of habeas corpus. Now, this is set up for the unlawful detention of any individual. When you submit the writ has to be dealt with. To further detain someone after they've received the writ is unlawful detainment. They should be held accountable and prosecuted, but at this moment in time, I presume that the UK is the only country in the world which, when presenting a writ of habeas corpus, they're ignoring completely. And they're actually torturing people. It's affecting the public. Now, this is a basic common right, or law right. It's a birthright that everyone has, and the fact that they're actually trying to ignore that and abuse it is disgusting. What we've confirmed is from Saturday we've been arguing with the courts, and up until today we've been informed that the paperwork is sitting with a judge. Now, the judge has the paperwork, it's simple, it's straightforward, there's no issue, she hasn't been found guilty, she's never been tried in a court here, they've taken her, they've locked her up unlawfully. She has a right to appear in front of a judge to argue a case. They're depriving her of that right, they have no authority to do so. They're also attacking the legal fiction, which obviously Lynn only stands as a living woman, so she cannot be held accountable under the system. And yet, despite asking for the name of the judge who's dealing with this, they're refusing to give us the name of the judge. So the paperwork is with the judge just now.
So what we're starting to see is the degree to which the judicial system is corrupt. It is corrupt on the basis that it works on the principle that nobody really understands the detail, and they've got away with it for X hundred years. And now that, unfortunately for the judicial system, people like yourself are starting to challenge the legitimacy of the courts, and they know fine well that those challenges have substance, and so they are doing everything they can to effectively obfuscate and kick the can down the road.
We've actually contacted directly, so we've contacted the Justice Minister and also the Home Secretary. Now, in this country, you have an abusive process here, an abuse of their system, and they're attacking and committing crimes against the people. So the Justice Minister has the relevant information, and yet despite this, he will not deal with it. Now, it's the same with the Home Secretary as well. The Home Secretary is aware of this situation, but will not deal with it. So it's disgusting the way they're actually committing crimes against the people in this country. It says they're throwing out writ of habeas corpus. You have no rights at all under this system, and they're refusing to deal with it. However, the Justice Minister and the Home Secretary are put on notice that if Lynn actually suffers any harm, they will personally be held accountable for it, because they're aware of this, and it's now 7 days down the line. It was last Thursday she was lifted, 7 days down the line, and despite having a writ of habeas corpus, they're refusing to give her a right of audience, which is disgusting.
So in the short term, I mean, what we have here is a truly remarkable situation, of course, and it hackles up because pretty much everyone in this country now either has somebody in the family or knows somebody who has suffered from and or even died from cancer. And so here is a product that has been proven, is well documented to have done what it says on the tin, to be an extremely effective treatment up to and including cure, and yet this is the pharmaceutical industry working with the British judiciary to ensure that those people who suffer from cancer can never access a product other than chemo or radiotherapy.
That's correct. This is all the fault of Ian R. Crane, who first of all told me about GcMAF in 2009. And as a result of Ian R. Crane, we then treated 9,000 people. There are 300 scientists behind GcMAF. There are 350 doctors who have used it, and thanks largely to Ian R. Crane, there are 250,000 followers of GcMAF on YouTube. If you go to mhracorrupt.st, that's mhracorrupt.st, if you click common law, you'll get an explanation in 2/3 of a page of why the courts are corrupt, admiralty courts, of why they are trying to strangle common law and failing. And John Smith is the leading advocate with 18 years of common law in the UK at the moment.
What I would like to say just now, it gets to the situation where we've fallen that far behind other countries in the world, and we still stand up and put our head up above, and we try to dictate this is how the judicial system should be run, how Parliament should be done. Now you have a situation here when people are suffering. You have friends, you have family members, you have a cure here, and it's been deprived. The people are being deprived, and Big Pharma and the government are obviously doing this for financial reasons, and they're blocking this treatment being given to the patients. Now, just now in America recently, while I don't like politics, I have to take my hat off to Donald Trump, because recently he passed legislation which has allowed for the use of experimental drugs to treat people if they wish to do so. Now,
No, they have to be approved by the FDA first, and the FDA is like the MHRA. They block any good natural treatment. They're
we
useless.
The same legislation in this country thanks to the Novel Medicines Act. This was Lord Saatchi, wasn't it?
Which the Queen signed into law. Companies, the NHS and the Department of Health have blocked Parliament's will, and that act is dead. It is live on the statute book. The Queen signed it, but the Medical Innovations Act has never been put into practice, and GcMAF could have used it to have been legal in Britain.
Well, and outrageously, that wasn't even raised by your legal team at the time of your hearing. And I mean, that was the prima facie evidence that there were, well, the will of the people was that if people wanted to try new approaches, provided they were properly informed, then they should have that opportunity.
Yeah, Parliament doesn't even know its wishes have been thwarted. The ignorance of Parliament is stunning. If you go to mhracorrupt.st, www.mhracorrupt.st, and click Parliament guilty, you will see how Parliament has connived in the murder of 2 million people by concealing the GcMAF from the public. GcMAF has been concealed from the public for 25 years.
Within this country just now, the people have the authority in this country. The people are being abused just now, being deprived of things like GcMAF, and again, at the end of the day, the politicians are held accountable for this. They're put in there by the people. He says if they're not doing what they're paid to do, the people should remove them. Simple as that. He says they're paid to do a job. They're causing on a daily basis harm, and they're committing crimes against the people in this country.
But of course, the whole process of government and law in this country relies on people not getting involved. It relies on people going about their day-to-day business, just trying to keep a roof over their head and food on the table, and just allowing the corporations to do whatever the hell they want.
It's understandable, and while I sympathise with that and accept that, what your viewers and the people have to think about is cancer affects everyone. Everyone will know someone who has previously had cancer, who's struggling currently with cancer, whether it's a friend, a family member, and in future they will still be dealing with that. Not only that, many of them will know people that's passed away.
Well, the forecast is that currently it's 1 in every 3 people that will contract some form of cancer in their lives. It's forecast to go to 1 in every 2 by 2025, and everybody by 2040. And yet the reality is that nobody needs to suffer in the way that they do today. And of course, the efficacy, the reported efficacy of chemotherapy is just 2.7%.
According to the Journal of Clinical Oncology, which studied 71,000 chemotherapy cases. And in our clinics, Lynn Thayer was successful with 77% in our clinic in Switzerland, and when they closed that, she was successful with 89% of terminal stage 4 cancer patients in our clinic in Guernsey. And we were not successful with leukemia or multiple myeloma, but in the lab we were completely successful. So we were studying on how to treat those 2 diseases in human beings, and if the MHRA had not got involved, we would almost certainly have found out how to treat those 2 diseases by now. But GcMAF already treats 90% of cancers, which is all tumour cancers.
So it's a pretty sorry situation. So obviously we've got 70 odd people here today. Obviously we need a massive turnout next Thursday as well to support you in that hearing. And of course, it should be a seminal hearing, because Justice Lorraine Smith did say that he would hear the challenge. And when you said that the challenge was against the authority of the court and the Crown, he made the observation, he said, well, that's pretty substantial.
Yes.
So he realises it's not something that he can just dismiss lightly. And then, of course, we see where things go from there. But what else can people do, David, to support you and Lynn in the immediate term?
Well, firstly, campaign to get GcMAF into the NHS, where it will save 120,000 lives a year. Secondly, write to any government minister. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, is very relevant. I would say Boris Johnson and
Buckland is the new Justice Minister.
Oh, right, Mr. Buckland, the Justice Minister. Write to those people, ask Lynn to be released from jail, because she has she's not guilty of anything. Yes, she has imaginary offences in France, which Judge Goodall has dreamed up from his own imagination, but the point of the extradition court, which is Westminster, and the appeal courts, is to prevent abuses of extradition law. So these 3 judges, that is to say, the corrupt Judge Rebecca Crane, the corrupt Judge Sir Michael Supperstone, and the corrupt judge extradition to France, to face abuse of extradition law. This is an extraordinary extradition, so please write to government ministers to get Linda Thayer, Lynda Thayer, to get her out of Bronzefield prison.
The one thing I'd like to point out just now is this we shouldn't be in this position. What we have to do is look at the basic facts. Now, at this moment in time, without causing any friction, we have a situation whereby the statutory courts have issued a charge, it says, and they've issued warrants for arrest, unlawful arrest. Now, in relation to the extradition, they've issued a court order for that. However, a common law court has been convened with the authority of the people, and with the authority of the people in a jury of 12, they actually annulled the extradition order. Now, while Until such time as this dispute is resolved, nothing can happen. Lynn should not be in jail. They should not. They're failing to deal with the writ of habeas corpus. She should be released immediately. Not only that, the court findings from the common law court confirmed not only with the extradition annulled, but they've stipulated that all assets must be returned immediately to both David and Lynn. They're allowed to continue with their work as well, which benefits the people, and that the existing judge, it was Michael Silverstone at the time, he was found guilty of criminal behaviour, fraudulent behaviour. That is actually a finding from the common law court, which is the people, it has the authority of the people. Now that's established, so they cannot ignore this order. They said the extradition has been annulled. Now if they want to establish a superior claim, fine, but until this dispute is resolved, it should be held in court. And again, they cannot proceed because there is an annulment. It is illegal, it's unlawful, and it's a crime against the people.
But the only way in which that gets stopped is the people literally mobilising and writing to the Justice Minister, writing to the Home Secretary, and writing to their MP, and getting the politicians and the judiciary to be aware that there is a groundswell here that isn't going to go away. And of course what they're looking to do is to extradite Lynn next Thursday and just sort of wash their hands of it and go, oh dear, what a shame, never mind, too late, she's gone. But that's just going to be the start of the real problems if that happens.
Well, they can't. This is because there is our order which is annulled, the extradition order. So it stands and it's been issued by the people. They cannot do that. If they actually go ahead with that, it finishes off everything. You have no government, no judicial system, there's no law in this country. It says that's it, it's finished. It's if they actually go ahead with the end. There's no justice in this country, and they are actually confirming that. So it's as simple as that.
We are being prosecuted under 3 EU laws. We live in the EU dictatorship. We are prosecuted under the medicines laws, an EU law. We are prosecuted under the Proceeds of Crime Act 2003, where everything we've ever touched is regarded as proceeds of crime, and we are being prosecuted under the extradition treaty, which is EU law. And this is not an extradition, this is an extraordinary rendition.
And just the observation here that, because I know a number of people have made comment about, well, won't the European arrest warrant be null and void once we exit the EU? Unfortunately, Theresa May, I think 2 years ago, committed to the EU that the EU arrest warrant would still be recognised by the British judiciary.
No. Well, that's fine, but they don't matter. They have no authority, and what you've got to remember is these warrants are issued, and the authorities and the acts they relate to are statutory legislation. As a living man and a living woman, we don't consent to that, therefore they're not applicable. That's it. Now, if they actually turn round and force the issue onto a living man and woman, that is criminal coercion. Now, under even the United Nations legislation, it's a crime to do so, because effectively what they're doing is branding the people slaves through the use of the legal fiction. So that is a clear breach of United Nations legislation, and the UK has signed up as a signatory, and yet they are on a daily basis committing crimes against their own people.
And I know, following on from your excellent presentation at AB10, at AB10.1 in October, we have a gentleman by the name of Gary Fraun, who has done some absolutely outstanding research into the relationship between the birth certificate that people are given here and the live birth certificate, which is kept in the Vatican. And Gary is going to be sharing his experiences of getting hold of his own live birth certificate from the Vatican, and of course encouraging others to do exactly the same. But no, finally, David, is there anything you'd like to say to all the people that are out there supporting you? Because, you know, although we've had 70 odd people here at relatively short notice at Southwark Crown Court, we know there's thousands of people, not just in the UK, but around the world, who are following what is happening with you and Lynn.
I'd like to thank the 250,000 people who are supporting GcMAF, myself and Linda Thayer on YouTube. We probably need to get to 1 million, and then I think the courts will crumble. I think they will let us go. But at the moment, 27 staff, and they have been to hell and back. And but I think we are going to win. I think there will be so many people behind GcMAF that I think we are going to win. And thank you very much, everyone. And everyone here today, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, David. Well, of course, we'll be back next Thursday, but as I said on Wednesday, I am actually taking a break from the live streams, unless anything untoward occurs, like David being back in court. So I'll be back here next Thursday, so see you then.
It's all your bloody fault, Ian!